The Disney Renaissance period produced many great films that have become staples in Disney's legacy.
For this video, we decided to revisit this iconic era in Disney Animation's history and put together our list of all 10 films ranked from worst to best.
What we did was we rewatched all 10 movies in chronological order, of course, and made our own rankings 10th to 1st.
Then we combined both of our rankings based on average placements to create our final ranking of all the movies.
Spoilers! We both had different movies in first place, but only one is able to achieve our combined top placement.
So without further ado, let's get straight into it, starting with our lowest placed movie.
Pocahontas ranked 10th place for both Daniel and I, making it our lowest ranked film. I grew up watching all Disney films, but I couldn't really recall Pocahontas that well, and now I remember why. I had higher hopes for this film. Unfortunately, it just fell short. Daniel, what are your feelings on this film?
Yeah, I found this one to be super underwhelming and quite boring for large parts of the film, honestly. I did like the concept of the film with this Romeo and Juliet-esque plot, but the execution of this film could have been a lot better in my opinion. I thought large segments of the film were boring. I found most of the characters pretty bland, especially the villain, who I think is one of the weaker villains in Disney's catalogue from what I've seen, as he's super forgettable. In fact, I think the better characters in Pocahontas actually came from the non-speaking animal characters, who had some fun personalities and probably had me the most entertained with some funny little moments. I do think that the idea of having a movie based on colonization is highlighting an important topic from history and could have worked well, but I don't know if Disney in particular needed to be the ones to take this on.
I was impressed with how the film did not sugarcoat the actual facts of the colonization period. I've always deeply respected the Native American culture, and it would have been easy for Disney to make it less accurate and make it more sunshine and rainbows. But the facts are that the colonization period did cause the slaughter of many Native Americans, and I appreciated how it highlighted that to a degree. I also really enjoyed the spiritual aspects of the movie, like the woman in the tree. I was really excited for it, but like you said, it was just underwhelming. The dog and the raccoon stole the show, and it added way more personality, and I liked how even they joined together at the end. I am sad with how much this movie is a flop.
Yeah, it was super disappointing, but for being the movie comfortably last on our list, I will say I was able to find some positives to take away from this film. I thought the songs Savages and Colors of the Wind were decent songs for the movie, and fittingly, I thought the colour and vibrancy of the movie was great. However, there are also some pretty poor animation moments, especially with some of the character models. Unfortunately, this movie also had the least intriguing start to any of the movies, and failed to get me intrigued from the very beginning, which is always just setting a film up for failure. All in all, a movie that lacked anything to make me really want to come back and watch again anytime soon, and so for now we'll have to settle in last place for our ranking. The Rescuers Down Under, despite having a lower ranking of 9th for both of us, actually was a pleasantly surprising watch. Neither of us had seen the film before or its original release, The Rescuers, so we was definitely going into this movie blind, but we are happy to say that we enjoyed this a lot more than anticipated. I will say that this movie being included in this era amongst these other Disney films, it definitely felt heavily out of place with its lack of musical numbers and different story pacing. They didn't really take away from the fun of this movie. Some of the other films I hadn't seen before for this video may have benefited by already having iconic characters or famous soundtracks to lean on, but The Rescuers Down Under kind of had nothing recognisable going into it, so it was starting with an uphill battle.
Yep, I had no knowledge of this movie whatsoever going into this ranking, but like you said, it was a pleasant surprise. The story follows a boy captured by a hunter trying to capture a bird, a rare bird at that. And you're wondering, where do these mice come into play? Well, there's a whole global network of rescue mice. 2 of the main mice are sent down to Australia from New York to rescue the boy. The story was fun and playful, and had high stakes, as the man kept trying to kill the bird and the boy. I found all the side characters to be cute, and it was a decent watch.
From what we gathered, the first movie had the 2 mice, Bernard and Bianca, as the main characters, but for this one I couldn't really tell who was supposed to be the main protagonist. Not that it particularly needed one though. Unlike in Pocahontas, I thought that the villain in this movie was a lot of fun, and him bouncing off his pet/sidekick Joanna made him a pretty fun duo throughout the film. As for the low placement of this film, it's because although I don't think it did much wrong, it also couldn't be placed any higher than 9th in this list because it doesn't particularly do anything outstanding either. There's no real emotional or super impactful moments in the film for me, and there's nothing that made it big in terms of pop culture impact like a lot of these other films achieved, and so it makes sense why this entertaining yet pretty simple movie is the lesser known films on this list.
I agree, it was a fun watch, but that's about it. I didn't feel like the scenes stood out, nor the characters. It was kind of like, oh, what a cute movie. I will say Disney does really well at pairing humans and animals together in movies, and this film is another example of that. But yeah, that's all she wrote. Now for our next ranking. The Little Mermaid is famously known as a top Disney princess and film. However, it did rank 8th place in our list. Growing up, this was never one of my favorite films. I honestly find it a bit boring most of the time. However, I give a lot of props for the catchy songs and even the storyline. It was an interesting decision for Disney to come up with a mermaid princess who wanted to be fully human, and it was different from the other princesses that came before. Ursula was a great villain and was a really cool concept. However, I think that the concept was better than the execution of the film. Daniel, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, another movie I hadn't seen before, but I knew significantly more about this one going into it. One thing that I never knew about was that Sebastian was such a moody character, as my only perception of him going into the film was that he was a happy singing crab, responsible for some of the bangers like Kiss the Girl and Under the Sea. I also agree that Ursula was a great villain and kind of gave you that annoyance that they wanted you to feel every time she was on screen. As for Ariel, the main character, I did find her quite likeable, even if she did carry some of the tropes of being a rebellious and stubborn teenager. I just know that a lot of people hold this movie in very high regard, so yeah, they might not be too happy with our agreed placement of 8th, Ashlyn.
Yeah, this ranking may be an unpopular opinion. The scenes in the ocean were quite pretty and I liked watching them. And of course, the canoe boat ride while the animals sing Kiss the Girl. I thought that was very romantic and such a beautiful scene. And Ariel was likable as well as Prince Eric, but again, I think they were pretty mid. Okay, maybe a bit higher than mid, but you get the point. I also liked King Triton and the father and daughter relationship. He is kind of a villain in Ariel's rebellious eyes, but eventually has a change of heart, as well as sacrifices himself for her. This movie came to a sweet conclusion, and yeah, it was good, just not great. Any more thoughts, Daniel?
I wanted to make note how with this being the earliest release from the Renaissance era, the animation definitely still holds up pretty well. The fact that Ariel loses her voice in the second half of the film and has to rely entirely on facial expressions to convey emotions, I'm sure that the animation department had their struggles with working with that fact, but I thought that they did a brilliant job in showing us what she was thinking at all times. Unfortunately, this is another film that kind of just misses a few things to make me care as much as some of the others, but it was fine for what it was. No higher than 8th though on our ranking for The Little Mermaid. Another match ranking again, as we both had Tarzan as our 7th best Renaissance movie. A movie I almost certainly watched as a kid, but all I could tell you about the film is that Tarzan is a man raised by gorillas, and the movie had a soundtrack by Phil Collins. Going from the first movie in The Little Mermaid to this, which was the last release from the era, I was pretty excited to watch this in hopes that it would be one of the best in the ranking, and it turns out, it was okay. Maybe a little underwhelming for what I was hoping for, but still pretty good. I think this movie for me is the biggest example of having me hooked in for certain moments and scenes, and then also having scenes where I'd much rather scroll on my phone. Like for example, the death scene of Kerchak where he finally calls Tarzan his son was actually really captivating and emotional, but unfortunately this movie got weighed down by some of the scenes which I felt could have been easily excluded without affecting anything in the story. But what are your thoughts on Tarzan, Ashlyn?
I honestly was surprised with this film. I had actually expected to rank it lower. My brothers liked this movie and I remember it being on occasionally and I just had no interest for the film. But actually, sitting down and taking the time to watch it, it wasn't too bad. Again, another interesting concept, although a bit similar to Jungle Book. I think Tarzan's found family is really cute, along with his relationship with Jane. But, like you said, there were definitely some less exciting moments, and it just lost my attention at parts. The villain wasn't that great in my opinion, and honestly, Jane and her dad should have seen that coming. That bit just felt a little too predictable, and I think they could have added some more interesting villains and characters to the mix. The side characters just weren't as charming as the other films we've watched.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on the bad guy. It's like they kind of half commit to having this shock twist villain, but they also had shown their cards that this was Clayton's intention throughout the film. He could have actually been a really impactful and shocking moment if he had acted caring in the search for the gorillas leading up to that moment when he betrayed them all. I don't want to focus too much on the negatives, as this film was better than I'm making it out to be, but I also really wasn't a fan of a lot of the voice acting in this film. Maybe something I shouldn't really focus on, but was disappointed with some of the performances and thought they could have been a lot better here. As for the positives, which gave this movie a better ranking than the others discussed, I agree that the relationships Tarzan had with his mother Carla, Kerchak and Jane were all really well presented, and also the visuals live up to this being the most recent release in this list. Especially with those scenes of Tarzan riding the vines and branches, as I thought they looked great and have held up really well.
I did like this movie visually as well. In earlier films, you can see how the backgrounds are a bit more vague and plain, but this one had a lot of good detail in the forest scenes. I would also like to note, I found a lot of the side characters low-key annoying. Well, mostly Turk. I loved Kala's character, however. I thought that the maternal instincts between the species was really beautiful. I thought it was amusing seeing Jane and her dad decide to stay, yet I wish we could have had a glimpse into how they were living. Obviously, it's up for imagination and context clues, but I would have loved to see a little time jump. It also could have been fun to see Tarzan living in a human society. But yeah, this movie had a bit more excitement, and I was surprised with how much I enjoyed this film. Let's see our next ranking. Coming into our 6th place is Mulan, which Daniel and I are in yet another agreement on. I will say I thought this was going to be in my top 3. I always really liked this film, especially Mushu. The songs are catchy and it really holds my attention. Granted, I haven't seen this film in a while. It had more humor throughout the film that I appreciated. I really enjoyed the cultural aspects of this film as well, especially with the ancestors. I really just like that kind of spiritual mysticism in films, and it just adds captivation. Daniel, what are your thoughts?
Surprise, surprise, this was another film I hadn't seen before, but I'm even surprised myself that this ended up placing higher than the likes of Tarzan and The Little Mermaid. I thought that Mulan was an excellent protagonist and made it so easy to root for her throughout the film. I also like seeing the cultural differences in this movie, with it being set in Imperial China, definitely helping it stand out from a lot of the other films that I'd seen before. Mushu being voiced by Eddie Murphy was a great choice, as what a captivating character he is. And I know this is a me problem and not a Mulan problem, as this movie was released first, but how could I not just think of Donkey from Shrek every time I hear this voice? That's my bad for not watching Mulan before Shrek, but I'd be lying if I said the voice wasn't a little off-putting. Overall though, Ashen, I thought the film did a pretty solid job in most departments, especially with that brilliant song I'll Make a Man Out of You.
I am working really hard to make sure Daniel is more cultured in movies. But yeah, I'll Make a Man Out of You is an absolute banger. I thought it was really empowering seeing Mulan prove everyone wrong. She was constantly being put down for being a woman, and so her story is really important to all the girls who watch this film. That is also so funny that all you're hearing is donkey, because I honestly hadn't thought about that until you said something. Also, another little funny thing I like to think about was Li Shang attracted to Mulan the whole time? Cause no judgment, it just makes me giggle the first time I saw that pointed out. And the villain was tough. I really liked his design a lot.
Yeah, the villain's design was really cool. He isn't as memorable or impactful as some of the other villains in this list, but I would say he definitely has a shout for winning the coolest design. The avalanche scene was definitely the high point of this film and really highlighted Mulan as the coolest Disney princess. And overall this was just a really well put together movie. I definitely wouldn't mind revisiting this one at some point, and it was unlucky to miss out on the top half of our rankings, but for now let's see what films were able to do so. But before we get into that, if you are enjoying this video so far, please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribing to support the channel.
Also, leave comments down below about your rankings for the Disney Renaissance period and what other movies or series you would like to see us rank in the future.
We've already ranked the likes of Harry Potter and Stranger Things on the channel, so check out those videos after this if you're interested in those franchises.
But for now, let's get back to our video.
Finally, we have a difference in our rankings, even if it is just one placement off. This one I'm really excited to talk about. I knew very little about The Hunchback of Notre Dame going into our watch other than who the main character was and where it was set thanks to the title of the film. But wow, what a fantastic movie this was. Visually one of the best from the list I thought. Like I love the shots of Frollo burning down Paris as he searched for Esmeralda, and also the shots of Quasimodo scaling in Notre Dame and getting views of the city. Speaking of Quasimodo, his character design and portrayal was amazing and made me feel sympathetic towards him all throughout the film. I honestly was expecting for this movie to be quite slow and one of the lower ranked, but it really did earn its place in the top half of our rankings. What are your thoughts, Ashlyn?
I completely agree with you. I had vaguely seen this movie and just assumed it was boring, to be completely honest, but oh my god, was I wrong. Like you said, visually, wow. Notre Dame and the church scenes were all so beautiful. I am such a big fan of beautiful architecture, so this movie really grabbed my attention. This movie also takes a break from the princess trope and focuses on poor Quasimodo. It was so heartbreaking, and this is the first movie in our list that I really felt for the character. I liked how this movie was about Quasimodo, but also what followed Esmeralda and Phoebus. I thought it added a great dynamic. The villain was unique, and it was funny to me that the reason he was doing all this was simply because Buddy was attracted to Esmeralda and wanted to hit.
If we ever did a video ranking Disney characters, then I'm sure that Quasimodo will be near the very top of that list. I feel like the easy move for this movie would have been that the Hunchback gets to go at the end of the film and they all live happily ever after. But I actually did think it was more impactful that Esmeralda went for the handsome prince, as this wasn't about Quasimodo getting a romantic interest. This was about him realising that he had self-worth and discovering that Frollo had been manipulating and abusing him for years. I genuinely thought they did a stellar job with nailing most of the characters. You absolutely detest the villain, you adore the lead character. Esmeralda and Phoebus were great additions for the film. My only gripe would be these gargoyle sidekicks. I really didn't like or care for their presence in the film, especially knowing how good a Disney sidekick can be. But as for everyone else, I thought they did a brilliant job.
The characters were so well developed, it's insane. I mean, you ate with that description. It would have been easy for Disney to have Quasimodo get the girl and live happily ever after, but this film went deeper into it. I loved seeing Quasimodo gain confidence and grow as a character, and he even rooted for Esmeralda and Phoebus, which was a great choice rather than making him bitter about it. I also appreciated how the film embraced Esmeralda's culture and community. As we've seen, this time period is quite diverse and really explored different cultures. And hey now, don't hate on my gargoyles. Were they a bit underwhelming? Yes, but I was ecstatic to see gargoyle sidekicks. I'm a big fan of Gothic architecture, and so visually this pleased me. Seeing all the artwork in this film was a big plus for me, and it was a beautiful story with beautiful visuals. Now, let's move on to our next ranking. The Lion King needs no introduction, and it earned itself our 5th place ranking. However, there is a slight difference with Daniel ranking it 5th and I 3rd. I personally have 2 things to say. 1, Mufasa's death gets me teary-eyed every time, and 2, Rafiki is my spirit animal. Daniel, why did this rank 5th for you?
I thought this movie was going to be a shoo-in for a top 3 placement from myself before we did this watch through. One of the few on this list that I could comfortably say that I had seen before, so it already had that nostalgic factor, along with it being arguably one of Disney's most famous and iconic films. Of course this would be a guarantee for my top 3, but after watching there were just others that outperformed and outshone The Lion King for me, unfortunately. Now what I can say to give this movie its flowers is first of all the soundtrack, one of the best collection of songs for an animated film ever, with just countless hits. There are also so many captivating characters in this one, with unique traits, from the humour of Pumbaa and Timon to the aura of Mufasa, and then there's whatever Rafiki has got going on. The Scar absolutely steals the spotlight in this film though. What a dastardly villain he is, and as Ashton brought up, The killing of Mufasa scene I think is probably the hardest hitting scene from any of these movies and makes Scar a really infamous villain.
I also very much agree with the soundtrack. In a lot of the films we watched, I found myself getting bored with some of the songs and even a bit annoyed when they would be singing again. But this soundtrack was just vibes. It was all catchy and groovy. Also, as you mentioned, this is another movie with very well developed characters. Scar is notably one of the most iconic Disney villains, and it seems obvious him being a villain to us, but he was really trusted amongst his pride. The hyenas were also really funny and wacky. I don't really have any complaints.
I also had zero complaints with this film growing up, but now unfortunately I do. I think the film was pretty flawless throughout the beginning, but having the climax of the film and Mufasa's death, followed by in fairness a really catchy song in Hakuna Matata, this movie then lost my interest from there. Sure, there's the whole Simba grows up and reunites with Nala, ultimately then returning to have his face down with Scar, but I really didn't like that scene. There's this weird slow-mo blur fight sequence which was just a really weird choice to have in there for me, and everything just felt very cluttered and rushed towards the second half of the film. Again, the first half of the film 10 out of 10, but after that it unfortunately dropped in quality for me, which ultimately costed The Lion King in our rankings. Beauty and the Beast is the first to crack into our top 3 and achieved a bronze medal. Despite The Little Mermaid and The Rascals Down Under being fun movies, Beauty and the Beast came next chronologically and blew both of those movies out of the water for me. I really can't think of a negative for this movie. The plot was so well paced to where this movie just flies by. The characters are really fun and unique with lots of personality, and they famously have really great designs, especially the Beast, who they were able to make both terrifying and charming. And I also think that the ballroom scene is one of the best scenes visually out of any of these films. Ashton, you favoured this movie though and placed it in second on your list, so what did you enjoy from this one?
I love this movie. All of the fantasy romance book girlies will understand why. This movie was stunning visually and had a great storyline. I also enjoyed how in this movie, we are to think that the Beast is the villain, but really, it was just an egotistical man. I won't lie and say this movie didn't have its boring moments, but overall, it was a great film. The plot was very cohesive and developed nicely. And I agree, the other characters just had so much personality. It just made it a great watch.
See, I would disagree there, as I didn't really find any moments in this film to be boring per se. Every scene felt earned, but I will just say that the plot is pretty two-dimensional, which made sense with it being based on a fairy tale. For the positives though, I thought that Gaston was a really great villain, not so much in the evil fashion like a Scar or a Frollo were, but just him being an arrogant and narcissistic guy with a dweeby little sidekick who worked well off of him. Belle didn't really have as much personality about her as a lot of the other film's main character, but to be fair, I don't think it was really necessary here, as the focus was on her relationship with the Beast. Overall, just a movie with a lot of charm, a lot of visually excellent scenes. Maybe controversially, I think this movie excels more than any of the others in this list in providing that Disney magic.
No, that's valid. That's valid. Maybe instead of boring, I would say it has its slower moments. And yeah, Gaston is a really interesting villain considering the fact that there are many people like him in the world. He was a realistic villain, which makes it a bit more scarier. One of the aspects that I really adored about this movie is the Beast and Belle's relationship. I am a sucker for the enemies to lovers trope. They have a bit of a slow burn relationship and he begins to become softer. It is a sweet love story. I'm glad we got to see their happily ever after and everyone returned to their human forms. That was just a really great and playful addition to this film. It has definitely earned its spot. And now for our top 2. Receiving our silver medal is Aladdin. Once again, we are at slight odds with this movie ranking first for Daniel and fourth for myself. For me, the genie really stole the show of this movie and is the reason I ranked it fourth. I did really enjoy the cultural aspects of this film, and starting this film off with Arabian Nights hits so hard. It was a fantastic opening scene. But now, let's hear from Daniel, who has this as his top ranked film.
Yeah, for me, Aladdin is number one. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to drag it over the finish line into our joint first place, but that's alright, I can settle for second. No surprise, I think this movie is incredible and is one of the best that Disney have to offer. I agree that the genie absolutely is the highlight. The humour and erraticness of this character makes him one of the most memorable in the Disney catalogue, and he couldn't have been portrayed by anyone but Robin Williams. Well, I guess Will Smith as well. I feel confident with this being my favourite of the bunch, as I think this movie has the strongest plot of any of these films. I think the music is the best from any of these films, and dare I say, I think the characters are the best from any of the films. Of course, we mentioned the genie already. Aladdin and Jasmine are both incredibly likeable protagonists. Jafar is one of the most intimidating villains from Disney for me, and that's without me mentioning Abu and Iago as funny and entertaining sidekicks. They even made a non-verbal carpet an enjoyable character.
I definitely agree, all the characters really shined. There was just so much going on, but in a good way. I will say this movie has always confused me a bit because I always looked at it as Princess Jasmine's movie, yet she really takes the backseat in this film. I would have liked maybe to see a bit more from her, but regardless, it was entertaining watching Aladdin, and I guess it was a nice break from the classic Disney princess story. Aladdin is quite charming and you root for him the whole time. I like the plot twist of Jafar getting the lamp, but only to be tricked to become a genie, and that allowed Genie to be set free. I appreciated that everyone got a happy ending because Genie really deserved it. Now, do we think that he was the street vendor from the beginning?
100%. Just the vibes and pacing in this movie are brilliant. There are no lull moments in this film for me, unlike some of the other movies, and I think it maintains my interest entirely through the film. Starting really great, having an amazing ending, and just lots of high points throughout the film. This is one of those animated movies I've seen many times before, and I'm sure I will watch many times in the future. I need my fellow Aladdin enthusiasts to agree with me in the comments, but as for mine and Ashton's combined list, Aladdin didn't get a nod for number one, as that honour goes to Hercules is our collective best Disney Renaissance movie, and it is very well deserved. We already covered that I do think Aladdin is the greatest Disney Renaissance movie, but I am in no way upset with my number 2 ranking Hercules taking our joint top spot. This was my first time seeing Hercules, and I was so surprised with just how entertaining this movie was from start to finish. I think easily this is the funniest movie on the list. Just so many little jokes and references crammed in, which made it really fun to try and pick up on all the gags that they included. I imagine this is one of those films where the more you watch it, the more that you'll catch. The character Phil, played by Danny DeVito, is definitely the best part of this film and was really funny, but Hades as well was also such a witty character. But Ashlyn, you had Hercules as your overall number 1, so take it away.
This movie was for sure the most entertaining. As you mentioned, the jokes and gags they threw in really added to the charming nature of the movie. It made it relatable and enjoyable to watch. Along with that, the characters have so much personality, which gives this film so much personality. I'm a big fan of Greek mythology and the aspects that it had in this film. I think that the history and the magic from the mythology allowed the film to hold your attention. After sitting down and watching all of the movies, this one just gave me the most enjoyment watching.
I'm just so surprised with myself that this movie ended up placing above the likes of The Lion King, as I always just thought this movie would kind of end up in the middle of the pack for this ranking. But there's really just no negatives I can think about for it. The visual design again for this film was brilliant, some really cool and unique characters, and I really enjoyed the action sequences throughout the film as well. As for the songs, there were quite a handful in this film that were also brilliant. In particular for me, I Won't Say I'm in Love and I Can Go the Distance really stood out as some of the best. I think that songs in an animated musical can really derail the movie or make it thrive, and in this case I think the latter, as the songs didn't just sound really good, but they also pushed the story forward really well.
All super valid points. I do have a bit of a confession to make. I did really like Meg, however sometimes her voice acting just kind of annoyed me. I think that over the top sultry voice just kind of irked me a bit, but I mean she still slayed. I also appreciated how they kind of made her the villain, or I guess forced to work for the villain, and then she sacrifices herself for Hercules. And I think Pegasus and Phil's beef with her was really great. Her character just had a nice complexity to it. And I mean, Hades is a great villain. I really enjoy a sassy and witty villain, or even just character. You also mentioned the soundtrack, and I thought having the muses sing was an excellent choice. Their gospel style adds a unique contrast to the Greek nature of this film. The beginning to the end of this film was captivating and flowed really nicely. The humor and the storylines really allowed this film to stand out, and I'm incredibly happy to have this as our first place winner.
So there we have it. This is our final ranking of the Disney Renaissance movies.
Quite a lot of agreement this time around, especially in the lower half of our list.
We had a lot of fun reviewing and ranking these films, so let us know if you want us to rank any other periods in Disney's history for a video. Perhaps we need to make a video where we rank every Disney animation movie ever.
That would be quite a long video. But please do leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed, as more support we get on this channel, the more time we will be able to invest in improving the quality and quantity of our future videos.
But for now, congratulations to Hercules on being crowned #1, and we will see you in the next video.
Peace out!